cup, one come all, those short, those tall. There may be some clowning around, but you'll get an earful all in all. No need for waivers, no need for saviors. Don't be frightened, do not hide. Enter now and enjoy the ride. So step right up, those far and near. The attraction is set. It's Ear for Fear.
Hi, welcome to the Ear for Fear podcast. This is the podcast that talks about scary movies or movies trying to be scary. I'm Rick. I got Jake back in the house.
Hey.
What is happening, man?
The usual.
The usual.
I'm getting old. I'm getting jaded. Always tired.
Typical day, huh? Well, welcome back out, man. The last time you were out, we did werewolves, and so I kind of felt like it'd be kind of cool to do like a vampire movie. Yeah. This was it was interesting. I remember when this particular movie was like, when we heard about it, dude, you texted me and were like, hey, when this comes out, we'll do this one.
Absolutely.
And that had to have been over a year ago or something.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Yeah.
Because I think it was, wasn't it supposed to come out Christmas of last year?
Was it?
Or summer of last year?
I don't know.
I'm sorry, I'm getting old and I'm losing my sense of time. But I know it was a long time before the movie actually came out.
Because I remember you texted me. It was funny. I was telling Morris this last night. I'm like, because him and I went and saw it, and he goes, and I said, yeah. I remember when we first heard about this. Jake texted me. He goes, hey, I want to do that one, and here we are.
Here we are,
and we're gonna be talking 2024's Nosferatu.
Come to me. Come to me.
All right, there we go. That's my intro.
That's it.
You like that?
I liked it.
My big budget intro.
It was a nice little sample.
Thanks, man. I'm getting better at it. Let's see, Nosferatu, a tale of obsession between a haunted young woman and the terrifying vampire infatuated with her. I mean, this is a story that's been around for what, a bazillion years?
I mean, you can't watch this movie without thinking of, Bram Stoker or the, what was it, 1928?
Well, Nosferatu. Yeah, Nosferatu.
And I think there was an Italian remake of it in like the 70s that I never saw.
Probably. I feel like in one way or another, there's been many of these. And just along the way, they seem to change some things, like in this one. But
there's a lot going on with this story in this film. And
for sure,
there's a lot of things going on around it before you even get into the movie itself. There's the original that came out, which I did watch couple of weeks ago.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I checked it out, and then I actually went and watched. Did you ever have Shadow of the Vampire?
I have heard of that.
So that was the one with John Malkovich playing the director, and Willem Dafoe, who's in this movie, playing the actor who's playing Count Orlok.
Yeah.
And then the whole story was actually just a ripoff of Bram Stoker's Dracula, which I also did watch the Coppola version of that a couple of weeks ago too.
Did you? Oh wow!
So there's a lot.
You did your homework here.
There's a lot, and I was just in the mood. I wasn't trying to do research for this or anything, but
you did way more than I did.
There's a lot going on outside of just this movie,
Yeah. Full spoilers before we start.
1, 2 spoilers coming for you.
So I will say this, and you're gonna have to. Well, you don't have to. I guess I'm gonna go right out. I didn't like this movie at all. Like I actually hated this movie, dude.
Really?
I will say the H word. I hated this movie. If you hadn't recommended it, I probably never would have watched it because it was pretty much what I thought. I was holding out hope. The only other Robert Eggers movie I watched was The Witch, which I despised. Okay,
and I fell asleep in the middle of that one.
Yeah, and I've been very vocal on this podcast multiple times when it happens to come up in conversation. I hated that movie. I was bored. I went into it thinking the movie was going to be one thing, and it was just, I don't know, a family's, I don't know, fight with religion or some bullshit. Sure. I hated it. And I watched it the one time I saw it in the theater, conveniently enough, with Morris. Morris and I saw it in the theater. I hated it. I'm like, I never need to see this again. Now, not to say that the acting wasn't decent and the feel of the movie, it's a period piece, which it seems like that's all he does.
It's an auteurs film, that's for sure.
And so I knew, I haven't seen The Lighthouse. I have not seen The Northman.
The Northman was great.
Was it great? And I have heard this from people. The Lighthouse looks like a movie I would not care to see, especially if it's anything like Nosferatu, which I have a feeling it is.
Yeah, probably. I get that feeling too. Yeah. I haven't watched The Lighthouse either, mostly because it's obviously a movie you need to go be in that space for a while. And so much, everything's going on. You're so busy. Like most of the time when I get a chance to sit down to watch a movie, it's something that I fall asleep at night too.
Oh, okay.
So it's definitely a stylized auteur. This is a filmmaker's film, absolutely.
And that's what this Nosferatu is. Like I don't know, like I'm just like saw this last night. Maybe giving it a fair review would be watching it a couple times, but I can tell you I would never watch this movie again.
Yeah, I do think I saw it yesterday as well. Yeah. And I do think that I need to see this again. I was watching it to watch a movie yesterday, which I know that I should have been watching it with an analytical mind, but I went and saw this because I've been looking forward to it for so long. When I heard that Robert Eggers, who I had only seen The Northman, I had fallen asleep during The Witch, and I didn't see The Lighthouse, but I can tell just from the way that this guy makes his movies that this is going to be an all-in, I keep saying the word auteur's film, but this is a filmmaker's film. This is this is supposed to be a piece of art. It's not a movie.
And I agree with you. If that's all that's happening here, I would applaud him, because I think just the feel of the movie, the look of the movie, the sound of the movie, all of those things
were done perfectly.
Perfectly. But if I'm going into the depths of this movie and everything else along with it, if you and I weren't sitting here right now doing this, I would have walked out. That's how much I did not like this movie. I almost walked out. I literally turned to Morris. Now,
just like, let me know what happens.
No, Morris fell asleep a few times, but that's normal for Morris. He does that a lot. It doesn't matter how great the movie is with Morris, he always falls asleep. And him and I've been going to movies for so many years, I'm used to it. And then what I do is I just give him a tug or something, like to wake up. And Morris is more forgiving of movies, or likes a lot more movies than I like. And he hated this too.
Really?
He hated it a lot, dude.
So what you're gonna hear from me is a lot of what I think is probably gonna be defense of this movie.
And that's okay. I want that. I want to hear from you to maybe you can change my mind a little bit. I know what I like and I know what I don't like. I knew I wasn't going to like it. I went into this wanting to like this movie, but I knew I probably wasn't, because I had a feeling it was going to be like The Witch.
Sure.
And it was.
Very stylized.
Very stylized. And I'm okay with stylized to a point. Like I said, it looks beautiful. This movie, like, he has honed his craft. If I can give anything to him, it's he knows what he likes and what he's good at, and he does a fantastic job.
This was peak execution of what I think his vision would be. With him as a filmmaker, and the reason why I was so excited to see this film is I thought about the way he makes movies, and particularly in The Northman, the way he films things, and I'm like, those two things, Nosferatu and Robert Eggers, like, go together.
Yeah, no,
he
for
is
sure.
the perfect director to make this film.
Yeah. And this could go back, like we could be talking 20 or 30 years from now, and people look back at his filmography and go, that was his peak. And I wouldn't argue that as the way the movie looks, the way it maybe sounds, but as a
I can't
whole,
think
it's
of a
just
better subject matter for his style of film
for sure
than this movie.
Like there were times where even though the movie is very I don't know, gloomy and
melancholy.
Melancholy and really kind of void of color, but it's supposed to be
Exactly.
because of the story. But there were some scenes that just looked beautiful, like to me where
Every scene
like
looked
almost
beautiful.
everything. Yeah. Like there was some that was just normal stuff, but just the the city, like the what they're like, it was so believable with that aspect. The rats and the Black Plague and there was a scene where Thomas he's on this journey to go to Count Orlok's castle.
Yep.
And he goes to this where the gypsies are.
Gypsy
and
camp.
they and again and we'll have to talk about that, because was that real or was that a dream? Because no one's there.
Yeah.
And then they steal his horse and he has to walk, and he goes to this path, and it's barely any light, but it almost looks like a long tunnel, but but you could tell it's like these silhouettes of trees.
Yep.
And the snow is falling. And it looked gorgeous.
It was beautiful.
It was beautiful, man. Like it
You
was
could take
like
any still at any point in this movie and put it up on your wall. It was art.
I agree with you, dude, 100%. Or when he gets onto the carriage and the wolves are following him from behind, and you can see the castle.
Yep.
And it looked awesome.
Gorgeous.
It looked gorgeous, dude. Yeah. But for me, other than that, and I would say maybe some of the music, I nothing else had me. I was bored. It was again a very well made movie, but it was very self-pretentious. It was just, for me at least.
I think, yeah, you do have to take a step back and realize this is pretense at its finest hour. Like this was artsy fartsy.
Yeah.
This was, that's what I was looking for when I saw this.
Yeah. So
I was looking at the story in and of itself. Like, this is a very weird, story. I don't know. I can't think of another story, be it a book or anything, that has this complex a history, where you've got the original book, Bram Stoker's Dracula. That's what this is. And so when you're looking at it, it's, how did Nosferatu get made? Well, the widow or whatever of Bram Stoker wouldn't sell the German fella the rights. So he made the movie anyway, changed the name of Dracula to Count Orlok, and he made the exact same story.
Yeah.
And so that became a legendary film of its own right. And when I look back on that, Count Orlok in the original still scares the crap out of me.
Oh, yes.
Still
Yeah.
looks absolutely
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
And so I was
And that was what, 100 years ago?
I was over, 100
100
years ago.
years ago, right?
100 years ago.
Yeah.
And so then, the next main one that I would think of would be the Coppola film, in the 90s, Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah.
Which was really, really good in some places. Like, Gary Oldman killed that role.
Gary Oldman's always good, yes.
The makeup and everything in that movie was amazing. And then they have, the Jonathan Harker character played by Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
And Winona Ryder. And you're like, who? Like,
Neither
I
should
love
have been.
both of them. I love, but
In
they-
different genres.
different genres.
Not in that.
They should
yeah.
not have been in this movie. So when you get to this, where this movie is coming out, I do think that this is now the quintessential film telling of that story. It's taken over, Bram Stoker's Dracula. This is the quintessential filming of that story. And yes, it is highly stylized. My biggest complaint with this film would actually have been Count Orlok.
Yeah. Yeah.
He looked creepy. He looked bad. I didn't mind the mustache,
It bothered me.
but they could have done something else with the eyes and the way that
Yeah.
in the original Nosferatu, the way Count Orlok's eyes just glowed,
Yeah.
and some kind of glowing of the eyes, hopefully not digitally. Like, there
Yeah.
was just something missing when I saw him in this film. Something was missing. And that's not to say that Bill Skarsgård didn't do a great job. He did an amazing job. My voice is trashed right now because I spent the rest of the day yesterday walking around going, "Oh, you have to like," Yes, and my wife's getting pissed at me because I'm like, yes, wife, I will go and fulfill the covenant of the laundry. She's like, just stop, Jake. But I couldn't think of anything other than that to say that this was a perfectly executed, this was him, and it's not going to be for everybody. I get that.
Yeah,
but I thought that this was film as an art piece, perfectly executed.
Agreed with you there. Look, I know what I like and I know what I dislike.
Sure.
I knew when you go, hey, let's do this one. I knew in my head, I'm not going to like this movie, even though I go into every movie wanting to really enjoy it. And I did with this. But it was exactly what I thought it would be. I knew it'd be very artsy, and I'm not I'm not into the whole vampire lore as much as say other people. I'm not into the whole. I like some gothic type stuff, but this to me is just, it didn't really hit any of the buttons that I like. I'm not like the Bram Stoker. I watched that one time in the theater, and it was enough for me. I hated it. And I had a feeling this would be kind of on those lines in the artsy stuff, and
Sure.
I'm okay with that. I, if anything, can respect what he's done with this movie.
Sure.
Like I disliked it. I would never watch it again, and I sure in the hell wouldn't recommend it to anyone. But the movie is beautiful, and he did a lot of fantastic things. It just wasn't for me.
It's not. Well, I think when it, knowing what I know about you, like, you're looking for a movie. This wasn't trying to be a horror movie. This was trying to be an art piece.
Yes.
And that absolutely can come off as pretentious to people. I agree. And I do think that this was a pretentious movie.
It was.
Too.
It was.
This was a horror movie that is looking to get itself nominated for Best Picture.
Oh, absolutely.
100%. And I think it might.
Oh, picture-wise, I don't know. It's possible. It will win.
Best art direction, costumes, something, sound. It's going to get something.
Absolutely, it will win. It will win some. If I take a step back and remove the other stuff that I had issues with, and there was a lot of it, I appreciate those other things. Like, I am not void of just, no, it was crap and I didn't find any good qualities. That's not true. Like, when I left the movie last night, and Morris and I both hated it, I said, but, I threw a but in there, but these things I thought he did a fantastic job with.
Yeah.
I will tell you some of my, maybe you will disagree with me.
Sure.
I haven't seen enough of Lily Rose Depp. I obviously know who her dad is. I haven't seen enough of her work to go, she was over her head. I thought she was awful in this, but I've heard other people think she was great.
I thought she was great.
See,
I thought that was like a breakout.
She bothered me through the whole movie, dude. Through the whole movie. I thought her acting was terrible. Nothing was believable with me with her convulsions. It wasn't believable. I didn't believe any of it.
I like the convulsions. I
hated it.
And I got to the point where I thought, how much of this was actually her? Was she literally performing those convulsions herself, or did they do it with a trick of the camera or something? I thought she did a great job, and she stepped up, I think, to that story wasn't necessarily about her. It was about Count Orlok. She was the subject of it, but it really put her center stage and gave her story a lot more depth than in any of the other tellings of this story.
Sure. I would agree with you with that. To me, and it's good. I'm glad you and I are on the opposite, because, on the opposite, I mean, we don't always have to agree on stuff.
Sure.
And you saw it one way and I saw it another. I thought she was miscast. I thought this was too much for her. But I know there's other people out there that are going to argue with me.
Looking at anything, like, just if you look at her face and the symmetry of her face and the big cheekbones and the way that her face was framed in the film itself, I thought it was amazing. I thought it was wonderful.
Yeah, she kind of ruined part of the movie for me. Like I was cool. Like, Willem Dafoe, we already know is always solid.
He's going to kill it.
He's always going to kill it, dude.
He played the Count Orlok Max Schreck character in Shadow of the Vampire too. So this isn't new ground.
He's
for him.
always solid. And
he's been in Eggers movies before, so
yeah, for sure. And Nicholas Holt, I mean, he's I like him. He's really good. You know, and there were other people in this that I thought were really his friend is
Aaron,
it Friedrich? Yeah,
Aaron Taylor Johnson.
I thought
that
he
guy
was
kills
he
it,
killed it.
everything he's in.
I thought he was great. Even the one doctor, was it Doctor? Was it Willem Dr. Wilhelm Sievers? He was the other.
Yeah, he's been in. Let me.
I liked him. I thought he was great.
Yeah, Ralph Ineson.
Yeah, I thought he was awesome.
And he was he's been in a bunch of stuff. Like he's one of those guys that I see in random movies, but he was the main character, the father character, and the witch, obviously.
Oh yeah,
and he was the main thing that I see him in, because if you know him and you know his natural accent, I would see him in Ready Player One. He's like the white trash boyfriend of his aunt.
Oh, is he?
And so when you have an image of him in your head, and you know what he sounds like when he talks, and he's trying to talk as like a white trashy kind of guy, and you're like, no, I'm still hearing a little bit of that English accent in there. Like, couldn't you find any real white trash people, Steven Spielberg?
you
like, you had to
could've.
go pull this English actor.
Yeah,
like,
that's because he was
but
beneath.
I like him. I like
yeah.
his voice. I like that guy.
There were like, and I thought Bill Skarsgård was very good. Don't get me wrong. I just wasn't in love with Count Orlok. I felt I know they changed a lot of they changed some things with the story, some characters and stuff. The mustache bothered me. The voice at times was very hard to understand.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I felt they could have done something differently with him. Maybe he felt more evil, more menacing. I don't know what that is. You're talking with the eyes. I don't know. I don't know. It's just, it didn't do it for me at all. Like, and Lily Rose Depp, I couldn't get into her. I could not get into her as this main character. She bothered me, man. And I know she probably tried her ass off, and I know a lot of people are going to argue with me.
I think she warranted a Best Actress nomination.
Really? See, to me, I'd be like, absolutely not. But that's okay. We're never gonna. We don't need to agree on everything. Like I said, I'm
just thinking of this.
I wonder
film
if there's
as like an execution of that story, though. I'm not looking at this film in and of itself. Like, she's playing the character that Winona Ryder played in Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula.
Very, very bad.
If you compare to that,
well, like, sure. If that's what we were comparing, then yes, it's because.
But at the same time, like, we're not arguing anything other than taste right now, which
true.
That portrayal of that character connected with me.
Yes.
And it didn't connect with you. And that's just,
and that's okay.
Our preferences.
Yeah. And I knew you would like this. And I just didn't, and I wanted to, and I will say, like you said, the telling of this story, he did a great job of it.
Sure.
Like I'd love now I don't know the story well enough to know, when the rats came and is that
was
part of
something added.
or did he add that?
That was added, and I thought that was really an interesting
It was.
way to, something came aboard on the Demeter. I don't know if they called it the Demeter in this, but something came aboard and it killed the crew. And back in that time, with all these rats coming aboard, it's very interesting to me that they would have assumed that it was the plague.
Yeah.
And so now people are dying. Things are happening. People are getting killed. They're dying of some sort of a sickness when it's really just vampires.
Vampires, yeah.
Well, which they didn't call them vampires then. They called it, Nosferatu or something like that.
Yeah. No, I thought that was interesting. Because didn't the Black Plague, didn't it hit in Europe? Like, isn't that where it, the origination, it happened?
I don't know where it originated from, and it wasn't the rats. Fun fact, it was actually the fleas that the rats carried with them that carried the plague. But obviously, they're not going to know that in this time.
That makes sense.
And I don't need this, just like we always do in movies. We're like, is that believable? It's like,
I don't care about that. Oh no, with this type of movie, I don't look at is that believable.
Yeah,
I don't with this.
And one thing, I'll give you one thing that I really loved about this movie was it took all the pretense, all the romantic pretense of vampires and how it's a longing, I have crossed oceans of time for you type of stuff, and it kicks it away. This was about, like, there was an animalistic nature to the vampire in this film, and that was, he didn't stay young, he stayed alive, but his flesh was still,
aging,
decomposing.
Yeah.
Decomposing the whole time. So his body is still dying. He still stays alive. And if you look at it like the vampire as an animal now, to where he didn't bite your neck in some way that looks like, they're kissing you and there's something intimate about that. It was like, in this movie, he goes straight for the chest. And then the sound design when he's sucking, and you can hear him swallowing and it.
Yeah, that was nasty.
Every breath was just.
Yeah, I will tell the breathing for me bothered me through the whole movie.
It was starting to get to me at the end.
Morris and I turned to each other like, dude, do we have to hear any more of this heavy breathing? And I'm like, oh my God, I know, man. Like, it was so much of it. I felt like it was almost taken away from the movie.
Well, because it's the amount of work it took for him to breathe like that.
Yeah.
You're like, it's.
But even
work,
her,
it's taken work to listen to it too.
Even Ellen's Ellen, Lily Rose Depp, that's all she did throughout the movie. Like it was getting old and annoying.
But I liked the idea that it, in Bram Stoker's Dracula, he sees the locket when Jonathan Harker is with him, and she looks just like his old love from hundreds of years ago. But I liked the added idea in this that she's been plagued with, dreams of darkness and things like that her entire life. And that was because, like, she had a connection to him long before that connection became facilitated by the events of the plot.
Yeah.
And they really gave her a more centralized role in this, whereas Count Orlok is supposed to be the lead of this movie. I think that of this story, it's about Count Orlok. Everybody else is playing second fiddle to him, but they really stepped up her role in this film. And ultimately, at the end, she was the one that had to sacrifice herself to kill him, because none of them were going to be able to kill him. There was no wooden stakes. There was. Was there a bit about the cross?
I don't know if there was a thing about
but
it.
It
there
became
been,
more of like
it wasn't like your typical tropes when it comes to
exactly.
Yeah,
and there were other things in the movie, like the bit about the virgin and was he awake for that? The virgin on the back of the horse, and there were creepy things that didn't need to be explained, and they were just creepy enough in their own regard. He wakes up from seeing that, and he's like, "Oh, it was a dream," but then his feet are dirty. I liked the sense that you never really knew what was a dream and what was really happening.
Yeah.
And I think that was part of what made the film work for me.
Yeah, but what I noticed though is from, I would say, the first, maybe, I'm not gonna say the first hour, but maybe 45 minutes, I kept asking Morris, I'm like, so, like the gypsy scene, like, was that a dream? Was that real? It felt like a dream to me. Then they kind of got away from that a little bit.
They're like dancing around him, and then they all start laughing at him.
And that felt dreamlike,
That
right?
was probably the weirdest part of the movie for me.
But then, he wakes up and no one's there, and okay, well, was that a dream? Did he never have a horse? Like, I don't.
And I think that's part of what makes the plot move along. And that's part of what worked for me.
So let me ask you this, because you're going to know the story better than me. Okay. So the point. Okay. What's his name? Okay. Knock. The character Knock, who was his boss.
Yeah.
But really is essentially Renfield.
Yeah, Renfield.
Yeah, Renfield. And so why though did he send Thomas there? Couldn't Orlok just have came on his own? Like,
and I think that was part of it, was he wanted the whole, because this plot was set in motion long before we get into this. It was not Hutter. I'm going to keep calling him Harker, but he was sent there under the instruction from Count Orlok he was telling Renfield he needed to send this guy because he was already after his lady.
But what purpose did that serve for him to come? So he could have some sort of control over him, or he could...
It was so he could detain him, separate him from the wife that he was coming after.
Okay.
So that's why he was held prisoner in the castle, was that he was coming to sign the legal documents over to get that. So he was going to, in theory, like in his intent was to hold him there indefinitely, so that when Count Orlok left and went to, I keep saying London, but I think
Germany.
It was Germany.
It was Germany.
When he left to go over there, he would have her all to himself. He wouldn't have to go through this dude to get to her.
Okay, so that was his intent. And that was the whole reason to get him there, was he was going to keep him there, and then he would go and basically take the...
Yeah, and, he wouldn't have this woman's husband in her ear the whole time about it. No, you can't go. It would just be the two of them. At least that was my interpretation of it.
Because Morris was telling me in the actual story, he does get found by nuns.
Yeah, he does escape, and he is found by nuns. And in this, they were saying that the reason why he didn't turn into a vampire, which that's always a weird thing with vampires, is that I always thought they suck your blood.
Yeah.
You turn into a vampire, but the actual lore is that you have to drink their blood to become a vampire.
Now, what did he drink that first night? Was that wine or was that blood? Because it was so dark, we couldn't tell. I thought it was blood.
Maybe. I don't know.
But then if that was the case, then he would have been a vampire.
That was the case. He pulled the old Michael from, from Lost Boys, where he had to drink the wine.
Yeah. Now, Willem Dafoe's character, Professor Albin
Van Helsing.
Basically, he's Van Helsing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. See, that's what Morris and I were like. Yeah, he's basically
Albin
Van Helsing.
Eberhard von Franz.
Von Franz, yeah. Okay, this is stupid. And tell me, maybe you have some insight on this. I know this is totally dumb, but it was something when Morris and I left the theater last night, I was driving. I'm like, hey, this was in Germany, but no one spoke German.
Yeah, they all had English accents.
Well, what can you tell me what that's all about?
I think that was just a stylistic choice that they were hiring. And that you're right. You're absolutely right. But if you think about it, if everybody was using German accents in this movie, it would be a little, this would be a problem.
I just thought there would be at least a character or two that did speak some German. I don't know, since they're in Germany.
And they keep, referring to people as Herr von Franz or Herr this or Doctor. So there was a little bit of that, but I think that was just stylism.
Yeah.
It was just the style. But you're right. If you step back and think about it, it didn't make any sense. I've seen movies where the Russians all had English accents too. I'm trying to think of which one it was.
It is true. I think, yeah.
There are certain accents that Hollywood is always going to gravitate toward, and English, is one of them.
It is, and German probably not so much. I get it depends on the movie. Like if we're watching it in Inglourious Bastards or something, well, sure, you know, it makes sense. But
one thing I wanted to check out too, and this is gonna out me as not knowing my geography. But does Germany have a port to the ocean? The only time I caught myself, he's walking out and he's at the port.
Yeah.
And I'm picturing Germany, and I think if they do, it's in the north. Yeah.
Let me hold on. Let me picture. Yeah.
I'm looking it up now.
Look it up. I was supposed to go to Germany earlier in 2024. I'm picturing Austria next to it, right? Austria. Shit. If you would have asked me this 8 months ago, I would have had a better answer for you.
Tell me this map has...
I want to say yes, but I mean, knowing...
Netherlands, Hamburg.
Hamburg?
There's Munich.
Yeah, because
Slovenia.
Towards the north is... What is more towards north? Is Berlin more towards the north?
Berlin's more towards the north. It's
north?
Just north of London.
But to me, if it would be more towards the, I'm trying to remember when we were planning this trip. I'm trying to remember what was towards the north of Germany, and then I thought water was more towards the west, but I'm probably way wrong.
Let's see.
So I mean, it's possible, knowing Eggers. I will say this with him: he is
the only map I can find on my phone here has no country borders, so I can see it. Man, this is crazy.
Because I want to say Austria is more towards the east.
Okay, I found one.
Okay.
Yes, it does. border the Baltic Sea and the North Sea.
Okay. And Noah Eggers, like I said, he knows his shit when he does his movies.
That's not something that they would have.
Like embellished or added to. No. He's yeah. Because I mean, like we said, man, like looking at the little city or town in Germany, it looked looked appropriate. I mean, just the walking through and I will say that stuff looked great. The rats, running through the cobblestone and the little alleyways and, yeah. Like
it was every scene of this was beautiful.
It is, man.
And you have to, it's not something I will ever just put on put it on in the background. I think, and that's Robert Eggers as a filmmaker. You don't put his movies on unless you're going to give them 100% of your attention and suspend everything around you.
Yeah. Really. No, and you're absolutely right. You have to be in the right mindset to watch any of his movies. Again, I've only seen the 2. I do want to check out The Northman. It was on TV recently, and I watched a few minutes of it. I'm like, okay, I might like this. The Lighthouse, not so much. But if anything, like, I don't have to like this movie to appreciate what he did with this movie. Like it's a very stylistic. He honed his craft.
Very gothic. It's a story that takes place. It's very much of that time. You can't make a Dracula 2000 type version of this story. It has to exist in that time period.
For sure. And if anything, he succeeded with that. I didn't care for some of the acting. I didn't care for the movie as a whole. That's okay. I can still appreciate what he did with the other aspects of the movie. I mean,
what he did was he created the quintessential version of this story. Like this, you can't look at Dracula and vampire. You can make a vampire movie and do whatever with it. But there's only one Count Dracula story. Well, now there's actually 2, but there's Orlok and Dracula. But of that story, this, I do believe, is now the quintessential version of that story told on film.
Yeah, I can't argue. I can't argue that. I mean, yeah, I think people out there, I wonder if there's a middle ground with this movie. Is it you and me? I hated it. You loved it. Like, is there a middle ground with this at all?
I think there's going to be plenty of people, I think there's going to be plenty of people who are going to see it and be like, eh. And those are the people that really love Fast and Furious. Like, please don't put me in Transformers is their favorite movie.
I can tell you I am not in that category.
So I think those people are the type of people that are going to see this movie because, their new girlfriend wanted to watch it.
Yeah.
And they're like, whatever, I'm just trying to get laid, bro. I'll put this on. So getting down to that last scene, which obviously they were foreshadowing the last scene when he finally found the book and he had opened the book and you see the illustration of that.
Yeah.
That was pretty damn nasty.
It was.
But I thought it was a good conclusion to where, this was. You can't see... I had heard a clip of the part where she's saying... And then I had also heard that the end scene was something really crazy. And I thought in my mind before I saw the film that it was going to be... And I purposely tried to stay away from things on this before I went and saw it. I thought that it was going to be that, they killed Count Orlok. And then the two of them, Ellen and Thomas settle back into their life together. And she comes to the realization that he will never be something that she loves as much as Count Orlok. I thought that would have been interesting, that this disgusting, beast of a monster thing, she's realizing that her husband could never be what that thing was to her. And I thought that would have been interesting, especially when there was a clip when she said, you could never please me in the way you could.
Yeah.
And realized, okay, that happened towards the middle of the film. But at the end of it, she ends up being the one that sacrificed herself. So this very much became her story and not Count Orlok's. I thought that was an interesting take on it. I did like that they really beefed up that character to make it more centralized, and that she had been plagued by these dreams of death and darkness her entire life. and had these spells. And I don't know. I liked it. It's not something that I'm gonna watch over and over again.
Definitely not. I think you're right though, in the sense I felt with her the way it went and ended, kind of there was no choice, right? It had to go that route.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have. I think I would have disliked this more if Count Orlok dies and Thomas and Ellen live
happily ever after.
Yeah, I don't want that. Or he's in her head, like, yeah, Thomas will never meet those expectations. I think I would have disliked that more. I was fine the way it ended. I felt like it had to end that way.
Yeah.
I never felt with her, like in other, say, vampire movies or Dracula, it always felt that the hold that, like in this instance, Count Orlok had over the woman was so great. I never felt that he had a hold on her, but she was still very loyal to Thomas.
Absolutely.
So I liked that aspect of it, because in every other movie they always go the opposite route.
Where
and
eventually she falls,
yeah,
victim to his seduction.
Exactly, and she didn't do that here. She knew what she had to do. She always had like these premonitions, so she kind of knew what was gonna happen.
Yeah, and so did I'm going to call him Van Helsing.
I know, but Van
Eberhard von Franz is a lot harder to say.
It is.
Well, he put it together and she put it together, and so they had to kind of go off and say, "Hey, it's got to be you. Like, we're going to send this guy off on this fool's errand over here." And then you see, Frederick Harding, whatever. His it consumed his entire family. And I thought that sucked for him. Especially since I really liked his character.
I did like his character. I felt so bad for him. I was shocked that they showed the daughters being... I was actually surprised by that. That threw Morris and I off.
Cold shit.
That was some cold shit. But I really... I felt bad for him. I felt like he was a good guy, and he just got the raw end of the deal with the whole thing. His whole family.
And he's sitting there and he's doing everything. I think that he's his friend in there. He's doing everything he can to help in something that he doesn't understand is going on, and it's slowly starting to take over his household. It's starting. Then the ship crashes, and now his business is has all these problems, and it's all this guy. I feel like he was still trying to do the noble thing.
He was.
And finally, when it took his wife and his daughters, he just completely broke down. And
for sure, which any of us would do that. Especially he hadn't been sleeping. He put up with a lot more with her than I think any friend would have for their friend's wife. I just
your nutty wife is going to come live with us. Great, sure,
yeah.
And I mean, to a degree, you can look at it in that sense that perhaps what he was doing was sort of condescending to her, and he wasn't really, and that's a problem with all the dudes in this movie, is nobody really gave a shit what was going on with Ellen. It was, she would try to tell him about her dreams, and he would be like, never speak of it again. I don't have time for this woman shit. So there was definitely an element of that. Even I'm sure there's a lot more detail that one can go in, and if they want to analyze, with the corsets and the way the doctors treat her, and all they do is just give her ether and knock her out.
That was interesting.
Yeah, so there's definitely an element of that where she is, she was. There's a lot to be said about consent in that, whereas she was trying to do the best she could while being plagued with all this stuff.
Sure.
And all the guys that are standing around her trying to help are not really helping her. They're just kind of getting her to shut up.
Yeah.
Tie her corset up tighter, and then she won't be able to flail around like that. It'd be a problem for us. But there's definitely an element to that is, to a degree, I know it's there, but a lot of that is going to go over my head because I'm just kind of a dipshit. But
so towards the end, when she has that conversation with Frederick, look, I'm not saying that he was never condescending, but I never felt he was as condescending as she portrayed him to be. Did I just miss that? I never thought that.
I think that's just a perspective thing. I think to a degree there was elements. Would he prefer she not be like that? Sure.
Yeah.
But I do think that stepping up and doing the right thing, which is what he did, even though you don't want to, or even though maybe you think she's just a little nutty, or maybe this is just attention-getting behavior. He was still doing the right thing.
He was, and I forgot his wife was pregnant at the time, so he lost dude, it was so sad. It was so sad.
And it took that guy's sanity, because I'm pretty sure. He did go into the tomb and hump his dead wife. Right?
That's what I think happened. This is okay.
I don't know how to interpret being in between a dead body's legs like that in any other way.
No, and this is okay. I'm glad you brought this up, because I've only seen the 2 movies of Robert Eggers. The Witch, there's a scene, and I don't know if you because you said you fell asleep during The Witch,
but didn't catch the end.
There's a scene where the mother she's imagining something, and then I think she wakes up and there's a crow that's sucking on her boob.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then in this movie, the rats are basically. I'm like, what is his deal? Now again, I'm gonna assume it. I don't know, because I haven't seen The Northman or the Light. I don't know what his fascination with this is. It's just weird to me. Like, does he have some sort of like a crow in The Witch is one thing because of the type of movie that was, and then the rats in this one, like, she's on the ground and she's kind of nude, and the rats seem to be chewing on her breast.
Well, I think
it was
about,
weird.
It's about consumption. It's about animal instincts, and that's kind of the themes. It's probably a similar theme in The Witch than this, is that what the darkness, what the evil is trying to do. And there's a lot of, I think, religious overtones to this.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And that is that what religion is telling people is that we are luminous beings. We are made in the image of God, that we have a physical form, but we are not animals. And what Count Orlok is a fucking animal, and his whole purpose is to consume. And in the same way that we have sexual urges as men and women, as people, but it's the animal part of you that wants to consume, that wants the sex. That's the animal part of you. And so everybody was kind of giving in, and it's about consumption. Orlok has to consume blood. It's about consumption for him. It's not about seduction. It's about a predator attacking prey. And in a way, there was that going on with Friedrich, in the way that I just can't help myself around my wife, you know? And in the same way that when she's died, he still can't help himself. He's turned into an animal. And it's also the rats are consuming her like they're just animals. They have to eat.
Yeah. And that's a good explanation as any. I don't know if I agree or.
And there was a lot of layers to it, I think.
There is. I will say that what you just said about Count Orlok, I'm glad they didn't, with this character, like you said, his sole purpose is to consume. They weren't trying to make him any part of a man. Like I never thought
he is long since
gone. Like there's that just doesn't exist anymore.
He is an animal. He is a force of darkness. He's more of an idea than anything else.
And so, with that, I'm glad they went that route with that. I'm glad they didn't try to make him any part of some sort of, there's still some sort of humanity left in him, because that's just not the case.
Yeah, like they did in Bram Stoker's Dracula. Yeah. I would have been upset if they had gone the route where he comes back into town and presents himself as like a good-looking dude who's going to seduce her. Like that would have been crap.
And so I will have to say I'm glad that that's the route they took with this. If anything, like I said, I didn't like it. But there are aspects of it that I thought were done really well. It
was like we were saying before, how I think Hollywood's gotten really good at making trailers, previews, and not as good at making movies. This was a 2-hour long trailer. It was beautifully shot, beautifully executed. I do think there are layers to this film that I don't get myself, or things that I don't see, which is why I want to go give it repeat viewings.
For sure.
Which is why I want to hear other people talk about it and see what they got.
Definitely.
What they got.
I mean, I know I could rewatch this a couple of times. I'm not going to like it. I know me. But at the same time, seeing it once, it's hard to really sit here and talk, and try to go through all the depth of Nosferatu. It's difficult.
Sure.
Like we could do a movie. I don't know. Let's just say we do Friday the 13th, right? Well, we've seen it a million times. We know the ins and outs of it. This movie requires a few watches.
I think this is a movie that needs to be studied and not just experienced once and then, hey, let's all go talk about it for an hour.
For sure. And it's hard. And I don't want to do the movie. I don't want to do it a disservice. Look, I know I didn't like it. I know I'm never going to like it. But that does not mean there are not elements of this movie that are really great. Yeah. And it is a beautiful film. I could see this version of Nosferatu being analyzed at universities in film classes. Absolutely, this will be.
At the end of it, it's my take on whether or not I thought a movie was successful. It's not the box office. It's, do I want Robert Eggers to make another movie? Yes.
For sure.
And I will be very interested in it. Do I want Nicholas Hoult and Lily Rose Depp and Aaron Taylor Johnson to keep making movies? Yes, I do. Do I want the cinematographer and the sound people to make more movies? Yes. I want them to keep going. Like, I thought the technical aspects of this film were
incredible. They're incredible, and I will give that. And I said that last night after I got out of it. I didn't like it, but I'm like, these things I thought were fantastic, and I still agree with you on that. They are. It's a beautiful film, and there are so many scenes throughout this movie that I was like, wow. It was breathtaking.
Yeah.
Even though it's like there's no color anywhere. It's just this. It's not black and white, but it almost felt black and white.
Black and white.
Yeah, and it still looked gorgeous.
And the first burst of color was when the sun comes in. At the very end of the movie. That was the first real warmth of any kind in this movie.
Yeah. But that's Nosferatu. Anything else you want?
No,
I think we did a pretty good job of talking about it.
It's good,
even though we've only seen it once.
Good as I can do.
I think you did fantastic. Well, if you don't have anything to add, man, I'm good. Thanks again for coming out, dude. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, everyone, take care. You listened all the way to the end. We appreciate that. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Ear for Fear Podcast, Twitter at Ear for Fear, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Ear for Fear Podcast. You can also check out our website, earforfear.com. There we list news and events. We're available on all the main platforms, so make sure you tell a friend. We hope you come back and get an earful.